Have you ever noticed how some people treat their birthday like it's just another Tuesday? No countdowns, no party plans, no dramatic social media posts saying, "It's my special day." Sometimes they even forget it themselves until someone else reminds them. And when you wish them happy birthday and they smile politely, maybe even look a little uncomfortable and say something like, "Thanks, but it's really not a big deal." Most of us grow up believing birthdays are supposed to matter. Cake, candles, attention, messages from people you barely talk to anymore. It's framed as the one day each year when the spotlight is meant to shine directly on you. So when someone treats their birthday like an ordinary day, it can seem strange, almost suspicious. Are they sad? Are they lonely? Do they not care about themselves? But the psychology behind people who treat their birthday like a normal day is often far more interesting and far more meaningful than simple indifference. Sometimes it starts with the way your brain learns to measure importance. For many people, birthdays are emotional landmarks. They're filled with childhood memories, balloons taped to walls, family dinners, wrapped gifts waiting on the table. The brain links birthdays with celebration, so the date itself begins to carry emotional weight. It becomes a yearly reminder that you exist, that you matter, that people notice you. But if your experiences were different, the emotional imprint can be completely different too. Maybe birthdays in your house were quiet. Maybe they were forgotten once or twice. Maybe there wasn't much money. Or maybe celebrations just weren't part of your family culture. Over time, your brain learns something simple. This day is not special. It's just a date on a calendar. And once a belief like that settles in, it tends to stick. Psychologists often talk about how early experiences shape emotional expectations. If attention was unpredictable, you may learn not to expect it. And if you don't expect something, you also learn not to need it. So when your birthday arrives, it doesn't feel like a loss to skip celebration. It feels normal. But there's another side to this that's less about childhood and more about personality. Some people simply feel uncomfortable being the center of attention. The idea of everyone singing to them while they stand there smiling awkwardly feels less like joy and more like performance anxiety. When people gather around and say, "This day is all about you," it can create a strange pressure, like you're expected to feel happy on command. And emotions don't work that way. Your brain resists forced feelings. It knows when something is genuine and when something feels scripted. For some people, birthday rituals feel artificial, almost like a social obligation disguised as celebration. So they quietly step away from the spotlight and treat the day like any other. Ironically, this doesn't mean they value themselves less. In many cases, it means the opposite. People who treat their birthdays normally often measure self-worth internally instead of externally. They don't rely as much on public recognition to confirm their value. The calendar turning one more year doesn't change how they see themselves, so the day itself loses symbolic power. Think about it like a tree growing in a forest. It doesn't celebrate each new ring inside its trunk. It just keeps growing, quietly, steadily, without needing applause. Some people approach life the same way. There's also a subtle psychological realism involved. Birthdays remind us of time passing, and not everyone experiences that reminder as joyful. When you're a child, getting older feels like progress. Each birthday is a step toward freedom and possibility. But as adults, birthdays can feel more reflective than celebratory. Another year gone, another set of goals unfinished, another reminder that time moves forward whether you're ready or not. For some people, ignoring the birthday is a way of softening that awareness, not out of fear exactly, but out of practicality. If aging is inevitable, why dramatize it? There's something psychologically grounded about that attitude. It's a quiet acceptance of time rather than a performance around it. And then there's the strange social theater of birthdays in the modern world. You wake up and your phone lights up with notifications. Dozens of messages appear, some heartfelt, some copied and pasted, some from people you haven't spoken to in years. Social media platforms turn your existence into a public announcement. Suddenly, people are lining up digitally to acknowledge you, often in ways that feel oddly impersonal. For some personalities, this creates emotional dissonance. You might appreciate the kindness, but something feels slightly artificial. The attention is triggered by an algorithm, not a spontaneous moment of connection. So instead of feeling celebrated, you feel observed. And that can make a quiet day feel more authentic than a loud one. There's also a strong link between independence and birthday indifference. People who value autonomy prefer days they can shape themselves. They might enjoy a quiet meal, a long walk, or an ordinary routine far more than a scheduled celebration. Freedom feels more meaningful than festivity. It's not that they reject happiness, they just define it differently. And sometimes, treating your birthday like a normal day is actually a sign of emotional stability. There's a quiet confidence in not needing one specific day to feel valued. Instead of waiting for the calendar to grant permission for appreciation, these people tend to spread meaning across ordinary days. They might find joy in small rituals instead: morning coffee, conversations with close friends, finishing a project they care about. The satisfaction comes from continuity, not from a single highlighted date. In psychology, there's a concept called hedonic adaptation, the idea that humans quickly return to their baseline level of happiness after positive events. Big celebrations feel exciting in the moment, but the emotional boost fades quickly. Some people intuitively understand this. So instead of chasing a temporary high once a year, they build quieter forms of contentment that last longer. Their happiness doesn't spike dramatically on birthdays, but it also doesn't crash afterward. It stays steady. Of course, not everyone who ignores their birthday feels peaceful about it. For some people, treating the day normally is a form of emotional self-protection. If you don't expect anything, you can't be disappointed. There's a subtle vulnerability in hoping people will remember you, celebrate you, or make you feel important. When expectations go unmet, the emotional drop can feel surprisingly sharp. So some people avoid the risk entirely. They minimize the day before it has a chance to hurt them. And from a psychological perspective, that makes sense too. The human mind is always balancing hope and safety. Sometimes safety wins. But even then, there's a quiet strength in choosing emotional control over emotional chaos. You decide how the day feels instead of letting circumstances decide for you. And there's one more layer that often goes unnoticed. People who treat their birthdays normally often see identity as something deeper than milestones. They don't divide life into dramatic chapters marked by candles and wishes. Instead, they see life as a continuous story, unfolding day by day. One date doesn't define who you are. You are the accumulation of thousands of ordinary days, conversations, mistakes, quiet achievements, unnoticed growth. Your birthday becomes just one page in a much longer book. And maybe that perspective is more grounded than we realize. Because if meaning only exists on special days, then most of life would be empty. But people who treat their birthdays normally often understand something subtle and powerful. Ordinary days are where life actually happens. Growth happens on random Wednesdays. Change happens in quiet moments no one celebrates. Understanding happens in conversations that never get posted online. So if you're someone who treats your birthday like a normal day, it might not mean you're distant or indifferent. It might mean your sense of meaning runs deeper than tradition. It might mean you value authenticity more than ceremony, consistency more than spectacle. And if you're someone who loves birthdays, that's meaningful too. Celebration has its own kind of beauty. Humans mark time because it gives shape to memory. But there's something quietly profound about the person who wakes up on their birthday, goes about their routine, and feels perfectly content with the simplicity of it. No performance, no expectations, just another day of being alive. And maybe that's the real perspective shift hiding underneath all of this. Maybe the most meaningful birthdays aren't always the loudest ones. Maybe meaning isn't measured in candles or messages or parties. Maybe it's measured in how peacefully you exist inside your own life,
whether the calendar calls the day special or not. So I'm curious about you. When your birthday comes around, do you celebrate it or do you let it pass like any other day? Either way says something interesting about how your mind understands time, identity, and meaning. And sometimes the smallest habits reveal the deepest psychology. If this made you see birthdays or yourself a little differently, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy exploring the quiet patterns hidden inside everyday behavior, you might want to stick around for the next video.